was me versus the world. Until I found it's me versus me. Why?
Just remember, what happens on Earth stays on Earth. We're gonna put it in reverse.
Darling, I told you many times, and now I'm telling you once again, just to remind you, sweetheart, that my...
So I was taking a walk the other day, communing with nature, stretching the old noggin, blasting some Ice Spice like a young munch tends to do, when all of a sudden, Kendrick Lamar's Duckworth came on in my headphones. Normally I'd be devastated a song dare interrupt my queen, but I'm a massive Kenny stan. And as I basked in his recount of corner store robberies, Kentucky Fried Chicken, failure, introspection, and coincidental meetings of fate undergone by parents, my smorgasbord of a brain, for whatever ungodly reason, linked him to my main man, Ichigo Kurosaki. One thing I'll always regret saying is that Bleach is a style over substance series, when in reality, a lot of its substance is found in its subtext. And no section of story has those undertones ripple to the surface like Everything But the Rain and The Blade Is Me. Two arcs that remind me that life is one funny motherfucker. When I first watched Bleach around early last year, Ichigo quickly became one of my favorite shonen protagonists because of how realistic he felt as a teenager. More than any other shonen character I've come across, except for maybe Denji, his struggles feel very grounded in the actual experiences young adults have. Minus the big ass demons and spirit samurais, of course. Many try to criticize Ichigo as a character for not having a grand overarching goal or ambition in the story, but if you ask me, that's kind of the point. Like many real world young people, he doesn't necessarily know what he wants to do with his life. He's insecure, uncertain, aimless, and he's constantly figuring himself out. All Ichigo really knows is that there are people around him that make dealing with shit a bit easier, that he has a lot of love for, and he'd do anything to protect them. That to me makes him relatable as all hell, and I love the way Kubo weaves plot threads and transformations into Ichigo's journey of self-discovery. It's not even until he meets Rukia and becomes a Soul Reaper that he can take more control of his life, protect people in ways he's failed to in the past, until he saves her and learns that control was a lie. He beats Aizen to take back some of that agency, only for Ginjo to throw it right back out the window, leading his allies to help him wrestle it back again. Bleach's biggest moments, its turning points and confrontations, Ichigo's newest forms and fattest Getsuga Tenshos all correlate with him learning a new aspect of his identity. It's made abundantly clear that the greatest enemy or weapon Ichigo can have is himself. You see it over and over again. It's a constant theme throughout the series, and one that leaves Ichigo a bit stronger every time he grapples with it. But Everything But the Rain is different. It comes at a point where pretty much everything bro has ever known is crumbling around him. He fails, and to make it worse, his greatest partner, the Blade Zangetsu, seemingly betrays him. And at this critical juncture, he's hit with the revelation that his mother's death, the event that makes up the foundation for so much of his self-doubt, failure, and weakness, had far deeper implications than he initially realized. Ichigo's self-hate has persisted for so long because he feels like he failed her, that her death that day was his fault. He's still bearing the weight of her lifeless body in his mind. It's the day it always starts to rain. So of course finding out that the single most traumatic event in his life was never actually his fault lifts a great weight off his conscience, being the biggest point of mental healing that allows him to move forward. But in a funny way, I think the tale of Ichigo's mom and dad meeting also provides a much needed example of individualism for Ichigo to further recontextualize his life. Yes, Aizen is still very much a master schemer. He's incredibly smart and used the whole Quincy, Hollow, Soul Reaper fusion thing to his benefit. But he didn't make Masaki show up that day. He didn't plan that. Her and Ishin were two strangers put in a random predicament, and it was her who made the active choice to protect him. And she lived with that, because it's who she was. She was like the sun. In much the same way that Rukia and Ichigo made their decisions on their fateful meeting. Despite Aizen's outside influence, it's only because of who they are as people, because they chose the path fundamentally true to them, that things panned out the way they did. It's a heartbreaking but necessary set of revelations for Ichigo. In order to fully discover himself, Ichigo needed to know the truth of what he was, who he was, to understand his identity, and he never would have reached that if he kept on rejecting those Quincy and Hollow facets. They were just as much him as the Soul Reaper. If it's you versus you, of course you're the only loser. It proves to him that the decisions we make are our own, that the only person who can truly fight for what we want is ourselves, that the only weapon that matters is oneself, or how it's more simply put, the blade is me. It's the single most character-defining moment in the series, the true culmination of his growth as a person. And all of this not because of some master plan or some goal he set out from the beginning, but because he accepted that the only thing that could truly stand in his way was himself. And now he can be what he was always meant to be.
You take two strangers and put them in random predicaments. Give them a soul so they can make their own choices and live with it. 20 years later, them same strangers you make them meet again inside recording studios where they reaping their benefits. Then you start reminding them about that chicken incident. Whoever thought the greatest rapper would be from coincidence? Because if Anthony killed Ducky, Top Dog could be serving life while I grow up without a father and die in a gunfight.
Jag fullständigt nytt
Now for that the world. Now fjällen väl sitter där.
So I was taking a walk the other day,